All right, when it comes to financing, there are a couple different documents we need to talk about. I guess I should have cleaned the board off. I wonder how many times I've erased this board. Way more than I've washed it. There are a couple different things we need to talk about when we're dealing with loans and notes and mortgages. The first one I want to talk about is this thing called a promissory note. A promissory note, sometimes they call it a financing vehicle or a financing instrument if they want to get really cute and sound all technical. Basically, it's an IOU. That's all it is. All right? When you go to borrow money from a bank, you will sign an IOU. That's your promissory note. All right? Here's my promissory note that I've got in front. Basically, it's nothing more than a piece of paper that says IOU, and it talks about, in this particular case, you loan me $100,000. I'll pay you back $556.55 a month for the next 360 months. Why 360? That's 30 years. The interest rate in this particular note is 5.33%. All right, I chose that percentage specifically. That's known as the doubling. Because if I added up 360 payments of $556.55 a month, look how much I pay back. $200,000. I borrowed 100, I pay back 200. So this note has value to it, right? It is a negotiable instrument. I can sell it. What gives it value is this thing called interest. The interest. Interest is the money you pay to borrow someone else's money. Einstein once said, and it's up for debate that it's probably an urban legend, the most powerful force in the universe is compound interest. Because literally on this IOU, I am creating out of thin air $100,000. Still the same piece of paper that you signed when I gave you 100, but now because you signed it with an interest, I'm getting back $200,000. Ta-da! All right? That's called financial services. A lot of banks call them financial services. Now, there is a law that says I cannot charge you too much interest. That's called usury. Usury, not loan sharking. The usury law says it's illegal to charge too much interest. Every state has their own usury law. Some states have no limit, which is why if you pull out one of your credit cards, it is probably from Connecticut, New Hampshire, Montana, because there's no limit on that. They could give you your really cool 3.5% interest rate on your Visa card, and then in small print it says the first time you miss it, it jumps up to 22 or 31. They have the right to do that because there's no usury law in those states. All right? The funny thing is, as of March 31st, 1980, federal law exempts federally-related residential first mortgage loans from state usury laws. So we're going to put a law in place that says you can't charge too much, and then we're going to write a rule that exempts the mortgages from that, which is the one law that most everybody gets anyway, the most popular note anybody gets anyway. All right? So that is my IOU or my note or my financing instrument. It's negotiable, it's worth money. All right. How many people in here have seen the Beverly Hillbillies? Have you guys seen the Beverly Hillbillies? I didn't think they have. The Beverly Hillbillies was a television show in the late 60s, early 70s. You know what a hillbilly is? It's a backwood kind of, they're often, well, now hold on, I've got to help them out here. Yeah. A hillbilly was often thought that they weren't very smart because they lived in the woods and in the hills. In this television show, this hillbilly named Jed Clampett found oil, and all of a sudden went from being a hillbilly in a wooden shack to a bazillionaire living in California, all right? And it was supposed to be just funny because, like, one of the things is they called the pool, they had a pool in their big house, they called it a cement pond because a pond is out in the woods and all that. Okay, reason I'm actually doing this is so that we all be on a level ground. There was another character in it named Mr. Drysdale, who was the bank president. In every episode, the bank president was always really nice to Mr. Clampett. Right? Remember that? Yeah. Do you guys know why? Because banks don't have money. That's for all y'all, not just these guys. Banks don't have money. I'm going to ruin you. There is no Easter Bunny. There's no Santa Claus. And banks don't have money. Banks have investors that give them money, like Jed Clampett. So in that series, if you understood that little tweak, you understood why Mr. Drysdale was always kissing Jed Clampett's ass, because Jed Clampett had the money. That's how it is in the real world. Banks don't have money. Banks are educated people that have gone to school and learned how to assess the risk of a client. But it's not their money. It's the teachers' credit union that's given them money. It's the pension funds that have given them money. It's investors' money. Banks don't have money. Banks make money in a couple of different ways. The very first way banks make money on this thing called a loan origination fee. A loan origination fee. A loan origination fee is exactly what it sounds like it is. It's a fee banks charge to originate a loan. So when someone says, I want a loan, and they say, come on in here and sit down, let's fill out the paperwork, they are starting the process. That's origination. You got to pay that guy somehow. They charge it to the client. The loan origination fee is expressed in this word called a point. Any gamblers in here? You know, they talk about you got to pay the juice and all that, and you get a point and 2 points. If you're a gambler, you got this one. A point is 1% of the loan, not the purchase price. Everybody raise your hand when you understood what I just said. Okay, we'll see. It's 1% of the loan amount. It's 1% that the bank gives you. They don't care how much you got into the deal. All they care is how much they've got into the deal. All right? Before I go to this, I want to talk about one other concept real quick. There's another anagram the bank loves. It's called loan to value. LTV, loan to value. It's the ratio of the loan amount over the value. All right? Bank's magical number is 80. 80% LTV. And you guys will get this slang really quick. All right? Your lender's going to say, what do you do? We'll loan you 80% LTV. So it's 80% of whatever the value of the property is. That's what the loan is. So if I had a $600,000 property at an 80% loan to value, how much is the loan? What's 6 times 8? Very good. That's how you guys need to learn to do math, by the way. And all that stuff about the new math, and people hate it, and they go, oh, I can't do it. That's actually the perfect way to do it. But I digress. I'll talk about that later. Is the amount of loan the bank is willing to make. So that means you got to bring 120, which is the difference between the 600 purchase price and the 480. Or the other way to look at it is, if they're loaning me 80, I got to bring 20%, and 20% of 600 is 120. Ta-da, the math works out. All right? So it's very common for lenders to tell you we're 75% loan to value, 100% loan to value. What's that mean? How much equity do I have in 100% loan to value? None. Right? 100% loan to value. So if it's a $400,000 house, it's a $400,000 loan. Okay? Got it? Good. Let's roll on. So I go and buy a $250,000 house. I've got an 80% loan to value, which is what we just talked about, but they're charging me 2 points for the loan. Somebody tell me how much the loan origination fee is. $250,000 house. That's how much the value is. I got an 80% loan to value. You people at home can do it by my voice. $280,000, 80% loan to value, and then the bank is going to charge me 2 points for the loan origination fee. So somebody tell me, how much is my loan amount? Huh? I ask you first. 80% of 250,000 seems to me it's like 200 grand. Yeah. And the loan origination fee is 2 points, so how much did I pay? What do we get? Sounds like we got a massive confusion. Right, it's 2 points means 2% because a point is a percent. But the kicker is it's of the loan. No, you're right. It's of the loan amount. So it's $4,000 because 80% of the purchase price, $250,000, means the bank is going to loan me 200 grand, and 2% of that is $4,000. So my loan origination fee on this is $4 grand. We're not going to get into that. Because if you rolled it in, it could be a buying power of 96. Right? So the loan origination fee is expressed in the terms of a point. A point is 1% of the loan amount. That's how banks make money. There's a second way called a discount point. Discount point, also expressed in terms of points, is the difference between what the investor wanted to get and what the lender actually got for the loan. So Jed Clampett gives his money to the bank and says, Mr. Drysdale, I want you to earn me 4% as the investor for the bank. And the bank can only loan it out at 3.25%. That other 0.75 may have to be paid by somebody because Clampett wanted 4. The bank promised him 4. They didn't get 4. Because the market rate's going right now that they can't get 4. So there's a discount point. Another way to think of it, and it's kind of loosely, is prepaid interest. So you might have to pay that 0.75% upfront to get that loan. All right? That's not the best way, but it's the easiest for you to think of. But the reality is a discount point is expressed the same way. So on this loan that we're talking about, I also have to pay 2 discount points. How much is it? In addition to... Yeah. It's another $4,000, right? Because a percentage is calculated the same way. So I had 2 loan origination points, which were $4,000, and I've got 2 discount points, which are also $4,000. $4,000 and $4,000 is $8,000. Or the other way you could have looked at it is 2 points and 2 points is 4 points, and 4 points is 4% of 200,000, which is how much? $8,000. Because percentages can add together. No, they're for different reasons. You wouldn't combine them. But for mathematical reasons, if the question asks you what's your total, yes, you can. But in real life, they're different things. Loan origination may go one way, discount points may go another.
So how that gets paid is up to the bank.
Whatever the bank and you agree on. Yeah, there's a rule somebody asked the other day, well, can the bank force me to bring the home inspection? Because one of the buyers said their lender was asking for the home inspection, and one of them said, no, you can't do that. And somebody else, because it's their money. Yeah. I can put any rules on my money I want. And you don't want to give me your home inspection? That's fine. I don't want to give you the $200,000. Now, here's the last one, ways banks make money. And this, once again, has to have been an attorney getting drunk. Because there's no way that logic makes sense to this. It's called a prepayment penalty. A prepayment penalty. Sometimes you hear it called a P3, prepayment penalty. This is, you're giving their money back to them too soon.
They wanted to make money off of that.
And you're getting penalized for it. Yeah. Currently, right now, I don't know of any bank loaning prepayment penalties because they're all trying to get their money out. They were there. They'll come back again.
I was going to say, I didn't think there were any currently.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything currently on the market right now because everybody's trying to get their money out because it's such a low interest rate. The market's hot. Nobody's putting a penalty on there. But there have been, and there will be, and it is still a mechanism. All right? Yeah. But you're not bitter, are you? Oh. Not at all. She overpaid and said it didn't match, so it threw the interest rate off, so they kicked it back to her. On a prepayment penalty, let me give you an example of one just so you get what I mean. The most common one was this thing they call a 531 prepayment penalty. 531. What that tells you is, first of all, there are 3 numbers there, right? There's a 5, a 3, and a 1. That's 3 different numbers. It tells you there are 3 years in length, the first 3 years. So like a 10-5 is a 2-year prepayment penalty. 5-4-3-2-1 is a 5-year because there's 5 numbers. So the number of numbers tells you how many years. So a 531 is a 3 years in penalty. Okay? The first year, if you pay the loan back, you pay a 5% penalty for paying it back. So I borrowed $200,000. I hit the lottery the next day and went back and paid them their $200,000. I would actually owe them another $10,000 on top of it.
Oh well.
Yeah. $325 million, okay, I'll pay the $10,000. No. The second year, so it's the second number, which is a 3, I only have to pay 3% penalty if I pay the loan off in the second year. Why a 3 and not 5 like the first year? because I've already paid the entire first year. All right, so the second year I just pay 3. In the third year, I pay 1 because it's a 5-3-1. Why is it only 1% in the third year? Because I've already paid the first and the second year off. In the fourth year, it is freely able to be paid off with no penalty because there's only 3 numbers, a 5, a 3, and a 1. So it's a 3-year penalty. On the fourth year, no penalty. All right? Now, you would ask, are there penalties around? Currently, maybe not. But then why would anybody have them? Typically, loans with a prepayment penalty are 1/4 to maybe as much as 3/4% lower than the market because they know they've got you locked in. So if everybody else is paying 4, you might get a 3.75 with a prepayment penalty. Wait, I have an answer.
Okay. What if your mortgage is sold in the secondary market and you are not in control of the prepayment penalty?
They can't change the, yeah, it's an assigned mortgage, by the way. Well, yeah, but it would have been in there when you first made it.
So they have to make it equal.
Yeah, they cannot change the, remember the other day? An assignment is, the contract stays the same, the parties change. They can't change it. If it was not in there before, your new one can't.
Okay.
All right? So back to what I was saying, the interest rate could be lower. So is a prepayment penalty a bad thing? Yes, no, maybe.
If you pay it off early, it's a bad thing.
One of those, certainly. Remember the very first day I told you one of the things you guys will do is counsel your client?
Well,
And
it depends on the person, because if you're in that house for life, some people are movers, some people aren't.
very good. If you're counseling your client and they say, I want to move into Center Grove schools. My son's in first grade. I want him to graduate from Center Grove because it's so good. Okay, what did they just tell you? They're going to be there 18 years or 12 years. So let's take a prepayment penalty that's 3 years in length because you ain't moving. But you could get the lower interest rate, which over the course of the next 12 to 13 years could save you a bunch of money. So you might be a client I actively try and find with my mortgage broker. Hey, have you got something with a prepayment penalty where we can get a little in under market? Yeah, I got a client. Okay, that's where we want to go. Conversely, if your client's like Sing and says, hey, I'm a flipper, I'm going to go in and out of this house in 6 months. Well, crap, we don't want a 5% penalty, and for 6 months time frame, that 1/4% interest ain't but $2 or $3. So for you, we definitely don't want a prepayment penalty. We'll take the higher interest rate. That all comes from you guys understanding your client and doing the counseling like we talked about.